don't usually tell this story, mostly because every time I do, it sounds like one of those mountain ghost tales, the kind people make up to scare tourists. But I swear on everything I know, it happened. This was in the fall of 2017. My best friend Ethan and I decided to do a 3-day hike in the Appalachian backcountry, deep into a stretch of old forest. It's not a popular trail. No signs, no official campsites. You won't find it on park maps, just a handful of hand-drawn routes passed around local forums. Ethan had found it through a guy on Reddit who posted about abandoned mining shafts somewhere along the ridge. That was the hook. We were both photographers back then, chasing that kind of eerie, forgotten beauty. We parked about a half mile from an old service road and hiked in. By the time we set up camp, the sun was already sliding behind the mountains. The whole valley turned this deep shade of blue. Cold air settled fast, and that's when I noticed how quiet it was. Not peaceful quiet, just still, like the forest was holding its breath. It was the second night when things started. I woke up to Ethan shaking my shoulder. "Hey, do you see that?" he whispered. Across the valley, past a line of thick black pines, a faint yellow light moved through the trees. It looked like someone walking with an old lantern, soft, warm, flickering. At first, I thought it had to be another group of campers, but that didn't make sense. There was no road access, no visible trail, and we hadn't seen a single soul in 2 days. The light moved back and forth in a straight line, slow and rhythmic like a person pacing. Then it would stop for a few seconds, drift to one side, then fade out. After about 10 minutes, it blinked off completely. We stayed up another hour waiting for it to return, but it didn't. The next day, we hiked down toward the lower side of the ridge to find water. That's when I noticed how strange the terrain was. Huge mounds of earth, half-buried timbers, and rusted metal poking through the soil. It looked like a mining operation that had been swallowed by the forest decades ago. We filled our bottles and marked the spot with a small rock pile so we could find our way back to camp. Ethan joked that maybe the light we saw was an old miner still working night shifts underground. I laughed, but it didn't feel funny. That night, we decided to stay awake later. We kept the fire low and faced the direction we'd seen the light. Hours passed. Around 2:13 a.m., I'll never forget that number, the light appeared again. Same distance, same swaying motion, but this time it wasn't across the valley. It was closer, maybe a few hundred yards below our campsite. We could see it clearly through breaks in the trees, like it was floating just above the ground. Ethan whispered, "Maybe someone's lost." I said, "If they are, they'd have a flashlight, not a damn lantern." We both laughed nervously, trying to sound casual, but neither of us moved. The light stopped again, right in line with our camp, and just hung there, perfectly still. Then, like someone flipping a switch, it went black. That night, I dreamt of a man digging through dirt, lantern hanging from a branch beside him. I woke up sweating, my mouth dry, and the air smelled faintly of smoke and metal. When I stepped outside the tent, Ethan was already up, sitting by the ashes of the fire, staring out toward the trees. He said he'd seen the light again, but this time it wasn't across the valley. He said it had been right behind the tree line, moving between the trunks. We talked about packing up early, but we were deep in, and pride or stupidity kept us from leaving. That evening, clouds rolled in. Thunder rumbled far away, and the forest dimmed early. We built a small fire under a tarp and sat in silence, listening to the rain hit the leaves. Around midnight, the rain stopped. The forest went still again. Then, from somewhere below us, came a faint clink, 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 like metal hitting stone. We killed the fire instantly. For the next half hour, we just sat there listening. The sound would start, stop, start again, steady, rhythmic. Ethan mouthed the words, "Digging." That's when the light came back. It rose from the base of the ridge, slow and steady, like it was floating up the hillside. We grabbed our flashlights, but when we shined them, the beam seemed to die in the fog, swallowed by it. The light kept coming, Closer, 30 yards away now. It stopped behind a tree. I swear on my life, I saw the shape of someone standing there. Not clear, not detailed, just a dark outline against that yellow glow. They didn't move, didn't speak. Ethan whispered, "Hello," and the light blinked out. The darkness that followed was absolute. You could hear your own pulse. We didn't sleep. By morning, we were both on edge. I convinced Ethan we should at least go down there and prove to ourselves it was nothing. Maybe an old light reflection. Maybe some kind of electrical flare from mining equipment. We packed our gear and followed the slope down to where we'd seen the light. The fog was heavy, damp against our clothes. We found the same clearing we'd marked before, the one with the strange mounds. Only now, half the ground looked disturbed. Fresh soil darker than the rest. And in the center was a wooden beam half buried, leaning against a collapsed tunnel entrance. The boards were rotted and broken, but carved into one of them was a single word. Harlan. Ethan stared at it. That was his grandfather's name. He told me his grandfather used to mine in these mountains, but he died before Ethan was born. The mine had collapsed sometime in the 1940s. His family never got details. We both stood there, not saying a word. Then Ethan noticed something lying near the entrance. He brushed away the dirt, and there it was, a miner's helmet. Old, rusted, cracked. The carbide lamp on the front was broken, but still faintly glowing blue. No batteries, no flame, just this soft, pulsing light. The second he picked it up, the wind stopped. Everything, the birds, the insects, even the rustling leaves, went silent. And then from inside the tunnel came the sound again. Clink, clink, clink. We ran. I don't even remember the hike back. Just flashes. Wet leaves underfoot. Fog burning off as the sun came up. Both of us breathing like we'd run a marathon. When we finally reached the car, we didn't talk. We just drove until we hit cell service. That night, Ethan sent me a picture of the helmet. He'd kept it despite everything. He said the glow had faded completely, but when he turned off his lights before bed, he swore he could still see the faintest shimmer on his wall. 2 days later, I tried to call him. No answer. His roommate told me Ethan had left early that morning for another hike. Alone. He never came back. I never spoke to him after that. It's been years now. I still go hiking sometimes, though never that deep into the Appalachians. And every once in a while, when the air is cold enough and the woods go quiet, I swear I see that same faint yellow light between the trees, always swaying, always at 2:13 a.m. And part of me still wonders if it was ever really trying to lead us away, or down into the ridge to finish what was left behind. I spent most of my life outdoors. Camping, hiking, fishing, you name it. The forest never scared me. If anything, it felt like home. That changed last October. I'd taken a week off work and decided to spend it alone in the Pisgah National Forest in western North Carolina. I'd done that trail before, parts of it anyway, but this time I wanted to go deeper, past the maintained routes, into the older sections where the forest feels untouched. There's something special about being completely alone out there. You start to hear the world breathing. You notice the rhythm of it, the creak in the distance, the wind between branches, the little sounds of life moving all around you. The first day was perfect. Blue skies, crisp air, miles of trail to myself. By sundown, I'd found a perfect clearing beside a stream to make camp. That night, I built a small fire, cooked some beans from a tin, and sat listening to the forest hum. It was one of those rare moments where you feel like everything is exactly how it should be. Until I heard the whistle. 3 notes, low, low, high. It came from somewhere behind me, far enough away that it echoed, soft and strange. At first, I didn't think much of it. Probably another camper, maybe a hunter signaling his partner. But it happened again, same 3 notes, same rhythm. I called out, "Hello!" Nothing. The sound didn't come again that night, but I couldn't shake it. There's something about human sounds in the wilderness. They don't belong there unless you expect them. The next morning, I hiked about 6 more miles deeper into the forest. No cell service, no trail markers, just a faint game path. The world felt endless, layers of ridges disappearing into fog. That evening, I made camp near a cluster of moss-covered boulders and a little waterfall. The air felt heavier there, like the woods were listening, but I tried to ignore it. Just before sunset, while I was cleaning my cookpot, I heard it again. Low, low, high. This time, closer. I froze, pot still in my hands. It was coming from the trees maybe 50 yards away. I shouted again, "Hey, who's out there?" No reply. I waited. The forest went quiet. Then, from behind me this time, low, low, high. It was like something was circling me, staying just far enough that I couldn't see it. That night, I didn't sleep much. Every small sound made my heart race. But the whistle didn't come again. The next morning, I found something strange. About 10 feet from my tent, the dirt was disturbed. Not like an animal had been digging, more like small footprints pressed into the soil. Barefoot, narrow, maybe the size of a child's. They led off toward the trees and vanished into the leaves. I tried to laugh it off, told myself it was just weird erosion, or maybe I was overtired and imagining things. But when the sun went down that night, I packed up my things and kept my flashlight close. Around midnight, I heard it again. Low, low, high. Only now it sounded different. Closer. And this time, there was a second whistle, same pattern, answering from deeper in the woods. 2 of them. They kept trading those 3 notes back and forth, almost like they were talking. I sat perfectly still, hand on my knife, trying to track where the sounds were coming from. One was near the creek. The other was somewhere behind my tent. I wanted to believe it was just 2 people messing around, but the rhythm, it was too precise, perfectly timed, like something repeating a pattern it didn't understand. And then both stopped. The silence that followed didn't feel natural. Even the frogs stopped calling. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, and that's when I realized something was breathing outside my tent. Slow, heavy, wet breaths. I held my breath and listened. It was close, right outside the thin layer of nylon between me and the night. Then came the sound of fabric shifting, something brushing against the side of the tent. I didn't move. After a long minute, the breathing faded. No footsteps, no leaves rustling, just gone. When I finally worked up the courage to unzip the flap and shine my light, there was nothing there. But I swear, the smell of damp earth and something like copper hung in the air. I stayed awake until dawn, every muscle in my body tense. When daylight finally came, I saw them again. Those same barefoot tracks, small, human-looking, circling the tent this time. That was it for me. I packed up and started hiking out, fast. But the forest didn't feel right anymore. The air was too still, the trails too quiet. Even the birds stayed silent. Around noon, I stopped for water. The stream was narrow there, maybe 20 feet wide. And from across the bank, I heard it again. Low, low, high. I dropped my bottle. The sound echoed once, then again from behind me this time. Felt like it was playing with me, tracking my steps. I didn't stop again until I saw my truck. By then, the sun was setting, and the forest was turning that same dark blue that comes before night. As I reached for the door handle, the whistle came again. Faint, almost friendly. Low, low, high, from somewhere just inside the tree line. I didn't look back. I slammed the door, started the engine, and drove until the forest was nothing but a smear in the rearview mirror. That night, I stayed in a motel outside Asheville. I left my tent and gear in the truck and sat on the bed, still hearing that pattern in my head. Low, low, high. Low, low, high. Sometime around 3 in the morning, I woke to a sound outside my window. 3 soft whistles. Low, low, high. When I jumped up and looked out, the parking lot was empty. The next morning, I checked the trail logs at the ranger station. Nobody had checked into that area in weeks. The ranger told me those parts of Pisgah used to be home to small logging camps back in the 1920s, places long abandoned now. He said the old-timers around there have stories about the ones that call in threes. Said if you ever hear the same whistle 3 nights in a row, you'd better leave before the 4th. I laughed it off at the time, but when I got home, I went through my phone photos from that trip. Most of them were normal trees, streams, sunset shots. But one of them, the last photo I'd taken before breaking camp, it showed the tree line behind my tent. And in the center, partly hidden in shadow, was a figure. Tall, thin, with its head slightly tilted, like it was listening. I deleted the picture right away, didn't even finish scrolling. But every now and then, when the wind hits the woods near my house just right, I swear I can still hear that same call drift through the trees. Low, low, high. And every time I wonder if it's calling me back. I've been camping in the Appalachians for more than 20 years. I know the sounds of those woods, the way a branch cracks when a deer passes through, the distant bark of a coyote, the soft hum of cicadas that tells you everything's fine. Out there, you start to trust your ears more than your eyes. That's why what happened at Laurel Fork still bothers me, because everything sounded wrong. It was late October of 2017, right before the first frost. My buddy Sam and I had taken a long weekend to camp near the Laurel Fork River in eastern Tennessee. It's remote country, steep ridges, cold streams, and miles of forest with no cell signal. We weren't there for excitement, just some quiet. We parked our truck about 6 miles down an old Forest Service road and hiked another couple of miles to a flat stretch near the river. We'd been there once before. A perfect spot with clear water and enough open space to set up 2 tents and a small fire ring. By dusk, everything was ready. We cooked over the fire, traded stories, drank a couple of beers. Typical trip. When the fire started dying down, the woods got quiet. Not peaceful quiet, just still. The kind of stillness that feels like the air itself is holding its breath. That's when Sam said, "Do you see that?" Across the river, about 50 feet away, stood a man. He wasn't moving. No flashlight, no gear, nothing. Just standing on the opposite bank, watching us. We figured maybe he was another camper or a hunter. I called out, "Evening," but he didn't answer. Didn't wave, didn't nod, didn't even flinch. The firelight barely reached him, but I could tell he was wearing something dark, maybe a jacket. His posture was strange. Shoulders slightly hunched, arms hanging loose. And even from across the water, I could feel that weird sense of wrongness. Sam whispered, "Maybe he's lost," but I knew that wasn't it. There's a way lost people move, tentative, searching. This guy was focused. He wasn't lost. He was waiting. After a while, Sam yelled again, "You need help, man?" Nothing. We watched for a minute or 2 longer, and then I got this heavy, cold feeling in my stomach. Like something in me knew we weren't supposed to be there. So we decided to just ignore him. We climbed into our tents, zipped up, and tried to sleep. I didn't. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling of the tent, listening to the fire pop outside. Every little sound made my heart jump. Twigs snapping, leaves rustling. Then, sometime past midnight, I heard something else. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from across the river. I held my breath. Then, the distinct sound of water. Someone wading through. I unzipped the tent just an inch and looked out. The fire was mostly ash now, giving off just enough glow to make out shapes. And there he was, standing on our side of the river now. The same man, closer this time. He stood at the edge of the clearing, about 10 feet away from the fire pit. No sound, no movement, just staring. I whispered for Sam, but he didn't respond. His tent was zipped up tight, and I could hear soft breathing inside, deep, slow. He was asleep. I wanted to yell, to wake him up, but something stopped me. It wasn't fear exactly, it was like my body just wouldn't. Like if I made a noise, something worse would happen. The man took one slow step forward, then another. He stopped at the very edge of the firelight. That's when I saw his face, or at least I thought I did. But it wasn't quite right. His eyes looked off somehow, too far apart. the mouth too low. And his skin, it wasn't the color of skin at all. It was grayish like clay, with darker smudges around the neck. He tilted his head, almost curious. Then he crouched. Right where the light hit the ground, he began dragging his hand across the dirt, like he was tracing something. I could hear it, that soft scrape of fingernails through soil. I finally managed to whisper, "Hey!" He froze. Then he stood not fast, just smoothly, like his joints didn't move the way they should. He turned away and walked into the woods. I waited until the sound of his steps disappeared before I moved. Ran to Sam's tent, shook him awake. When I told him what I saw, he thought I'd been dreaming. But when we looked the next morning, there were footprints in the dirt, bare feet, long toes, deep heel impressions. And in the center of the clearing, drawn perfectly in the soil, was a long, narrow oval, like the shape of a grave. We packed up that morning, didn't talk much, but just before leaving, I crossed the river, wanting to see where the man had been standing the night before. When I got there, I realized something else. The ground was soft and uneven, like it had been dug up recently. And at the center of the disturbed earth was a small hole, deep and neat, about the size of a hand. Inside it was a piece of fabric. It looked old, weathered, maybe canvas, and printed faintly across it were the letters, LF Campground. That sent a chill down my spine, because Laurel Fork Campground doesn't exist anymore. It burned down back in the 1980s after a flash flood and a lightning strike set part of it ablaze. 6 people died, their bodies were never found. We didn't tell anyone about what we saw, didn't file a report, didn't talk about it for years. But a few months ago, I got a call from Sam. He said he'd gone camping again, this time with his brother, about 30 miles north of Laurel Fork. He told me that on the second night, they saw someone standing near their fire. Tall man, silent, watching. He said when they packed up and left the next morning, they found a hole in the ground where he'd been standing, freshly dug, just like before. And inside it was another piece of fabric, same faded print, LF Campground. I haven't been back to those woods since. I still love the mountains. I just stay closer to towns now, where you can still hear the hum of power lines and see headlights once in a while. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see that man again, standing just beyond the firelight, his face pale and wrong. And I can't stop thinking about how deliberate it all was. He wasn't wandering. He wasn't lost. He was looking for something. And the hole he left behind, I don't think it was meant to be a grave. I think it was a space, an opening, like something or someone is still waiting to be filled. There are places in the Appalachians where the past doesn't stay buried. It waits, patiently, quietly, until someone stumbles into it again. So the next time you're hiking out there, and you hear a whistle or see a light flicker deep between the trees, don't look for it. Don't call out. And whatever you do, don't stay the night. Thanks for watching. If you've had your own strange experience in the mountains or something you still can't explain, share it in the comments below. Because sometimes, the scariest stories are the ones that sound just like yours.